We're going to talk about guide tone lines. Guide tones are the perfect way to outline harmony when you're comping and soloing. It's a really nice way to start stepping away from just playing block chords and being super reliant on grips. So guide tones are just code name for the third and seventh of whatever chord you're playing. So what you want to do if you're not familiar with this concept is just take a look at the grips you know and identify the thirds and sevenths. So if I take drop 2 voicings like this C major 7 that everybody knows, and I just call out the interval structure here. I have a root, a fifth, a seventh, and a third. So the top 2 notes in any drop 2 root position voicing give you the guide tones, right? So the seventh of C is B, and the third is E. So these 2 notes together are the guide tones of this C major 7 chord. Let's just take a look at all the chords in C for a second just to see what we're working with. So here's a C major 7, here are the guide tones. If I change that to, let's say, a C dominant, C7, that B flat and E are the guide tones. That's pretty cool. If I have a C minor 7, B flat and E flat are the guide tones. If I have a C diminished, A and that E flat are the guide tones. A is a double flatted 7th, and that E flat is a minor 3rd. So this kind of thinking works with whatever voicing you have. Minor 7 flat 5, even though the flatted 5th inside that chord structure sounds like what gives its chord its definition, the guide tone line is still the flatted 7th and the flatted 3rd. Where this concept gets really interesting is not when you're looking at one chord, but when you're looking at a whole succession of chords. I'll show you why. So if I take a chord progression, let's say I'm taking Autumn Leaves. Autumn Leaves goes C minor 7, F7, B flat major 7, E flat major 7, A minor 7 flat 5, D7, G minor. So if I play it as grips, it looks like this. If I just isolate that guide tone line, here's what you get. Here's your C minor 7. Now in the G minor at the end, I kind of went G minor 7 to G minor 6. Now this might seem pretty bland, but just check out what happens if I'm playing, let's say, lines and really focus my line around that guide tone line. So I'm gonna go a 1, 2, 3, 4. Might not be the most dramatic thing, but you can definitely hear the harmony without me playing any roots and fifths. So the heart of the changes is always the thirds and the sevenths of whatever harmony is moving. A great thing to do is just practice in multiple locations on the guitar this moving guide tone line. A side note you want to keep in mind is that you don't want to play any guide tone lines too low on the guitar or too high on the guitar. They're sort of meant to be the middle of a chord. So I would say you probably don't need to practice them any lower than the 5th fret on the A string, right? Like this voicing, even though that's the 7th and 3rd of E flat major 7, I would never play those 2 notes and think about them as E flat major 7, this chord, right? It's sort of too low. And way on top, it doesn't really it sounds fine, it sounds good, but it doesn't really give you what you want. So the main places you want to focus on playing them are maybe on the A and D string above the 5th fret, anywhere on the D and G string, anywhere on the G and B string. You should practice it anywhere just to know it, but you don't really have to focus it way on top on the guitar. And here's why. A cool thing you can do with guide tone lines, let's say I'm voicing them on the D and G string like I did before, is you can add scale notes to them. Now, what does that mean? So that first chord, C minor, the scale that goes with it is C Dorian, right? Here are the notes. Right over that sound. Now, if I'm just holding down these 2 notes and then moving those scale notes freely on the B and E string, I get these sounds. So I'm free to move the melody, but I'm still keeping something from the sound of the chord intact. I'm outlining the thing that your ear needs to have to really register that chord as what it is, and then I'm moving melody on top to color it. And here's where you get to blending tensions in. So let's say I'm holding the guide tones of C minor, and then I'm gonna add the 6, just from the scale. And I can just blend it with some other notes. Here's F7. Here's B flat major 7. E flat major 7. Here's A half diminished. D7. G minor. This is just by seeing the modes on the top and holding those guide tones, right? So if I'm comping, I'm free to play melodically in the way like. So what I did there is I just drew the information from modes I know. So I went C Dorian to F Mixolydian, using the same parent scale, to B flat Ionian, to E flat Lydian, to A Locrian. So these 5 modes are just basically the key of B flat or C Dorian if you're doing minor conversion, or however you want to think about sharing those 7 notes, these notes, on top for color while keeping the guide tone lines intact. So if I just take, let's say, one of the notes from it, let's say this this G, and I'm gonna keep it while I'm moving the guide tone line. Here I'm gonna have to change it because it's a suspension. Right? It's a nice sound. Now, if you know more scales, let's say on that D7, I want to play altered. So those are the notes of E flat melodic minor. Right? Here's E flat melodic minor on the top 2 strings. But I'm gonna play those notes against that guide tone, right? Here's the guide tone of that D7. And when I resolve, I'm gonna go to G minor, and I'm just gonna, let's say, go to G Dorian. So I'm just moving the mode on top while keeping the guide tone in the bottom. It's a super useful way to sound like you know what you're doing and still maintain that connection to outlining the harmony. This is really baby steps into outlining. Now, instead of doing it on these 2 strings, I can move it to the G and B string and do it here. I have this line now. You can find another place to play them too. They invert, right? So here, if I'm looking at this guide tone for C minor, I have my minor third and my flatted seventh. So I can look for a place where they're sort of flipped over. If I look right here, I have my flatted seventh and my minor third. It's the same two notes, I'm just inverting them on the same string set. So here is my E flat and B flat, and I'm just finding B flat and E flat instead right here. But this gives me an inversion of that guide tone line. So here's C minor, here's F7, here's B flat major 7, here's E flat major 7. I have to jump up here because I'm out of guitar. Here's A half diminished, here's D7, and here's G minor to G minor 6. So it's a pretty cool tool. Now let's hear me building some lines using that stuff. A 1, 2, 3, 4. Pretty cool, right? I just played guide tone lines with very little other information. You can add a little bit of chromaticism to just make that motion between one chord's guide tone to another chord's guide tone a little more jazzy. So let's say I'm going from a 2 chord to a 5 chord, C minor to F7, right? That's really like just changing that one note, but I can go. See what I did there? I went C minor, and I just use a little enclosure to get to the third of F. Just these little games you can play melodically to color the line a little bit and make it sound cool. So let's check out some musical examples. Here's how you can use this stuff comping. Now over the track, this is how you can use some of this stuff soloing. If you dig this lesson, please subscribe to our channel. We have tons and tons of content there. Like, subscribe, hit the things, ring the bell, and also join our Patreon. We have all these tiers. We have monthly Zoom lessons, gear hangs, transcriptions, all sorts of stuff. Just check it out. Follow the link below. Also, we just started a new channel with backing tracks, so make sure you get your backing tracks there. And we'll see you tomorrow for more content.